Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2014 UK war thriller Kajaki, A True Story.
Yeah? And that'll stop the bleeding.
Hey, that's not fair. I don't feel like I'm doing that bad here. I think this is going to be a good review. So, Kajaki, I think is how it's pronounced, A True Story, has a 100% fresh rating from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and an 82% fresh rating from the audience. I'm currently reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating from the critics in chronological order. Now, this movie was released in the US as Kilo 2 Bravo, and I don't know why they changed the title of it. Normally, if you have a movie from another country, you have to just take the English version of that title and release it in the US, but I don't think Kajaki translates to Kilo 2 Bravo, but what do I know? So this movie is about a group of British soldiers who are trying to defend the Kajaki Dam in Afghanistan. Now, they believe that there's this canyon. They believe that if they can get through the canyon, they have a much better spot strategically where they can find Taliban and get rid of them. They just have to get through this canyon. So a bunch of them go down to the canyon, and when they go down there, one of them sets off a mine which explodes, and I believe he loses a leg or something. It's very tragic. And after this happens, a lot of the other soldiers go down to try to help him. You got medics, you got all kinds of people that are going down there, but once they realize the whole thing is a minefield, they kind of just sit there, they kind of just wait, buy their time until they can get some help. Now, help comes in the form of a Chinook helicopter, which is not what they wanted. It is the wrong kind of helicopter because it has to land in order to get people onto it, instead of being able to have someone come down and with a gurney thing and put them on it. Has to actually land, and it can't land because they're in a minefield. Now it tries to land, and the soldiers are telling them, no, don't land here, this is the wrong type of helicopter, we need something different. But he tries it anyway, and then he leaves, and he really does more harm than good here. Now, I don't know if the helicopter, I know it was just so much, it was just kicking up so much dust and so much dirt. I don't know if it actually kicked up some mines and repositioned where the mines were, or if the people who blinded by the dust and the sand were moving around. Something happened where a bunch of mines were set off and a bunch of people got really hurt. So I think after this scene, there's 5 or 6 people who are really very, very injured. One of them is kind of mortally injured. He's dying very quickly. I think his name is also Mark in this movie. But now we have a group of people who are very, very hurt. They are out of splints. They're out of morphine. They're out of everything they need to help these people. So they're really just waiting for a helicopter to come save them, and they're trying the best they can to keep these people alive. It's very tense. It's very on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to come next because you don't know. There's still people who are alive who are trying to get around. One guy in particular, I think he's a medic. He's throwing his backpack on the ground, trying to find where mines are so he can get to people to help them. You don't know when another mine's going to go off. You don't know if another mine's going to go off. You don't know if someone else is going to get hurt or if someone's going to step on a mine and kill people who are already hurt. It's a very tough situation. Now, eventually, at the end of the movie, this is going to be a spoiler here, a helicopter does come down and starts rescuing people, but the person who was mortally injured, he gets on the helicopter and he asks if everyone else was saved, and they tell him yes, and then he passes away. I think he's the only one on screen they show pass away, but I think that other people in real life actually did pass away, and maybe it wasn't theatrical. I don't know. But that's what this movie is. It's a lot of very tense situations, wondering who's going to get blown up next, wondering if these people are going to be saved. I mean, they don't hold back any punches here. It's very gory. There's a lot of blood. They do a very good job with the missing limbs, the holes in the chest. One guy, the guy who's mortally injured, his arm is dangling, and he's missing a leg. It's very gory. It's very hard to watch. If you're kind of sensitive to gore and violence and blood. This definitely isn't the movie you want to see. But that's what the movie is. So what do I think about this movie? I think the movie it's a very, I've never heard of it before. I think it's a very good movie. I think it is one of the most tense war movies I've ever seen. It's much like 12 Angry Men, where it's all in one room and it's just the acting, it's the situation, it's the blood. It's just the on the edge of your seat panic that you have that keeps you into this movie. It, that keeps you wanting to know what's going to happen. Now, as much as I loved that part of the movie, as much as I loved how I didn't know what was going to happen next, how I didn't know if anyone was going to survive, you really don't know how many of them are going to survive if you don't know the real story, or if any of them are going to survive, really. As much as I loved those parts of the movie, there are a few things in the movie that that were hard for me. One of them is I had this movie, the volume up all the way, and I still had a very hard time hearing a lot of things that were going on. There was a lot of mumbling in this movie, and the accents are also so thick in this movie that I had a really hard time understanding what anyone was saying. I had a hard time making out. Now, I didn't have captions on the version that I watched, so it was very hard to make out a lot of what was being said. I really just had to go based on the action of the movie, based on what I thought the interactions were, but a lot of times I had no idea what was being said on screen. And then one other issue, personally for me, that I had is the same issue I had with the movie Black Hawk Down, where I don't really know any of these characters at all. Like, there's maybe two characters in this movie that I could identify from start to finish through the entire movie, but a lot of the characters who were getting injured or getting hurt, I had no idea who they were. And then I only knew them towards the middle to end of the movie based on what their injuries were. But in the beginning of the movie, when they're buddies, when they're meeting each other, when they're trying to develop these relationships between each other, I really had no idea who they were, and I really couldn't follow who any of these people were. So when it comes to them getting injured, I do care a lot that these people are injured because they're soldiers, because they're in a situation that they didn't ask for, really. But in all honesty, I can only care about them so much because there was no real emotional attachment there because I really had no idea who they were. Had a very hard time following that. But besides that, I think that this is a brutal movie. It's a very good movie. It's a very honest movie. There's no agenda in this movie. They're not really trying to tell you that like one side is good or one side is bad. They're just presenting you what happened from the perspective of the people it happened from, and that's it. You know, they're not asking you to take a side. They're just saying, here is the horrible thing that happened to these soldiers. We're going to let you watch it play out, basically, which I enjoyed. I don't think I've seen a war movie like that where there is no agenda, there is no sides that are being taken. It just kind of gives you the information and you take it in, which I really thought was unique, and I really like that about this movie. So I give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I thought it was good. Not great because of the two reasons that I mentioned, where the dialogue, I couldn't really figure out what they were saying, and I had a hard time keeping track of who these people were. But anyway, 8.5 out of 10. I hope you join me for my next review. Have a great day.